Hey, this is Max. Welcome back to another CSR2 video. We are here with the Audi R8 V10. This is this season's Prestige Cup car. Natural Motion decided to let us get a Tier 5 car as a Prestige Cup car, but not only did they pick a Tier 5 car, they picked one of the best I think they could have selected for this option. The Audi R8 V10 is a very good car that will serve you well if you manage to get it into your garage. But if you are unlucky this season and is unable to pull this car, and you play long enough to get the Vorsteiner R8 as your milestone before, you will still be okay because these cars apparently share some kind of similar programming. And whereas one is in a cup, the other can be used. So you'll be okay there, even if you don't have this particular R8. If you have the Vorsteiner, you can still run through the PC Cup this season. Now then, this car is very good, so let's take a look at the various effects of Stage 6, live racing, and also possible use in Tempest. I think you won't be disappointed. All right, jumping right into it, let's take a look at Stage 5. This car is quite decent at Stage 5. Here it is tuned with full fusion at Stage 5. You can see the high EVO points. The dyno says 9.831. What's worth noting is that while this time doesn't beat Tempest 3 Tier 5 Elite, you have already beaten all the target numbers for the toughest races in Tier 5 for Tempest 3, other than the time. So it's a good starting point for a car that is easy to get fusions for and is easy to potentially max out this season, provided you have enough bronze keys. So let's take a look at the stage sixes. Here's a quick preview of the actual order the stage sixes end up as to kind of save you some time if you don't want to watch every individual one. Okay, stage 6 body, let's take a look at the times. I've already pre-tuned the car, so I'm just going to show you real quick and give you the dyno, and then we'll move on to the next stage 6. Again, let's take a look at the dyno, 9.505. That's a decent drop from the 9.8 that we started at. Moving right along, we have tire stage 6, again pre-tuned. This way we can move quickly. And here you have tire kind of set up with a little bit less grip. And with that, we get a 9.571. This is only a little bit off from body, so this is a pretty strong stage 6 as well. Although 3/10 isn't necessarily the biggest number, it's not bad at all for one stage 6. All right, next one up, we have trance and pre-tuned. Let's take a look at the trance. It is actually a good stage 6. In fact, it outperforms both body and tire, which both give a decent drop, but this is again even better. Not quite 4/10, but pretty close. Moving on from trance, we go right to engine. Engine being tuned has a little bit lower EVO point, and that usually means it's a little bit slower, which it is. 9.680 isn't terrible, but it's not that much of a drop from the 9.8 starting point. So engine so far is the slowest or the least effective of the stage sixes among the four we've tested. Moving on, we are now looking at turbo. Turbo, of course, usually don't end up as good as even engine, and it does not disappoint. A little bit slower and barely faster than stage 5 only. Turbo is not a very strong stage 6 for this car. On we go to intake. Now, much like in real life, intake by itself usually won't do much for a car. In this case, It doesn't do much for this car either. But what's surprising is, and maybe it's my tuning, but so far, this number actually beat turbo by 7 thousandths, if I remember correctly. So intake beats turbo. Who would have guessed? But a thousandths is still a thousandth. So I'm going to put this one above turbo, at least on my list of stage 6 effects. Maybe if you tune a little differently, this thing will be a little bit slower than turbo or a little bit less effective than turbo, but nonetheless, intake, not very impressive, but at least it beats turbo. And finally, we have nitrous. Now, nitrous usually, when tuned, can be pretty effective depending on the car. But again, this one, I haven't fine-tuned it as much as I should. But here, I'm going to try to squeeze some more out of this nitrous. Looks like we're somewhere around 5.9 being one of the stronger points. And does it help to tweak the final drive now? Not really. All right. So tire I already played with earlier. So here you have 9.662. It's not that bad and actually puts it pretty much on par with the first two stage sixes we looked at, which is body and tire. Um, Trans still holding the lead at this point with turbo coming in last. So we now have our order of stage six effects. Okay, so now you know the stage six effects. The next question tend to be asked is, well, how upgrade do I need to be in order to beat Tempest 3 Tier 5, beat the boss, beat Harkness, and get his car? With this car, you're going to need some things, particularly stage sixes. You're going to need probably 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 4 of these guys right here. These are the strong stage sixes. You're going to want these because otherwise you may need 4 or 5 when you combine it with the weaker ones. But with just the 3 strongest ones, not even counting the fourth one, which is nitrous here, we can see that the car will do 8.976 if you drive it perfectly, but the 0 to 100 and the top speed will be more than enough to beat the final time for Harkness, as well as any final speed traps and challenges. So let's take a look at the effects here of how well this car drives. Well, it if you launch it perfect and you drive it right, you should be able to get pretty much close to what the dyno says, although I usually end up a little bit off from what the dyno says because I'm just not that quick on the shifts. But here, 9.048 is not perfect, but it is enough to get you through. You could probably practice a bit and get into an 8.9 type range. If all else fails, there's always safety in more upgrades. So if, let's say, you get a fourth stage six, you would want to install that, and that should push you well into the eights. Now, again, let's install something that's not super effective, but isn't completely worthless. Let's put intake in. Now, that actually seems to have lowered the final Evo points, but again, you need to fine tune it. And usually, with a little bit of tuning, you can get that extra performance out of it. So here, 8.8s, which considering, so now we can use the plus minus to fine tune it. Considering that this is one of the second weakest stage sixes, 8.84 is not bad, a drop. The main goal here with this extra stage six is to kind of guarantee yourself an 8-second run, which will make sure that you don't lose to Harkness and not get the car because a 9.04 may not cut it versus something like an 8.9, which would definitely do the job. So the question is whether I'm going to get the 8.9, but at 307 mile per hour, let's see what we ran. 8.858. So that was a better run for me too, and definitely in the eights. And that would make sure you beat Harkness because this is a little risky. So you're talking about beating Tempest 3 Tier 5 with possibly 4 stage 6s. You need 3 strong ones at least, and one of the weaker ones would help you give you that buffer you need. This is a good car because at least the fusions are easy to get, although stage sixes can be difficult. Now, now that we've looked at the tempest part, let's start taking a look at the next part of interest to everybody, and that is going to be live racing. So let's take a look at live racing from here. All right, so we finished discussing Tempest. We know this car can do Tempest 3 Tier 5. What about after Tempest? Is this car going to be useful afterwards? Well, it is. Remember, I did a video on this car explaining how well it beats Dyno. Here, I'm going to give you a complete recap of that, including the discussion. One thing that has changed is this. When I did the old video, my shift pattern was rather funky because it was the shift pattern from before an update that changed it to this pattern. I actually never reset the car, so I never got this pattern until someone actually alerted to me on Facebook that says, look, if you return the car to stock and then you reset it, it'll give you the new pattern. So here I am with the new pattern. Does the new pattern still beat Dyno like the old one? Absolutely. Um, if you adjust simply the final drive on this car, you can adjust how much you beat dyno by. That is a very rare thing. Very few cars in the game can do that. What do I mean by that? So we start off at 8.842. By adjusting final drive, let's say you're putting the next gear into where the original gear would be, you're now 9.181 at 310. But if you run the car, you can actually still run around a 9.0, which means you're beating dyno by about zero point 0.1 plus, right? The key here is you do not want to launch perfectly. You rather launch a little bit late, like that, and the rest is the same. You kind of try to not bounce the needle and run the car out in 6th gear, which will top out about 309. Instead of 7th gear, you're now running only to 6th gear, 9.028 on a 9.181 dyno. Not bad, but that's not a huge margin. Can it be better? Sure. How about this? 9.571. Can we still do the 9.0? Absolutely. This is why this car, much like the Vorsteiner's 570X S, is a very good car for the people that don't like to really get into tuning and trying to figure out finite details about how to get the car to run further under dyno. This is one of those slide the slider and your car will beat dyno by however much you want it to. Can't beat that. That's a great thing. 9.0 again, except this time it was on a 9.5 dyno, almost 9.6. What about in between? Can we put it in between somewhere? Sure, let's put it to 9.43. Okay. And once again, we're going to drive it and try to beat dyno. So as long as you're launching either early or late and you set the number to where you want to be, you know that what the final number will be closer to where the car could run near perfect. It's not going to be as fast as its max evo settings, but it'll still do the job. And once again, without even looking, I'm anticipating 9.0 run. It's just going to be what it's going to be. Okay. So you have here a car that could be dyno by whatever margin you feel like. So that is a great thing. All right, so we have done the tuning and now let's put it to practice. In order to make things a little more interesting and to kind of go back to my stage 5 tune that beats dyno, I have reset the car to stage 5 only. Here I have the car towards a higher dyno point, more or less max evo, without specific fine tuning, but that's pretty close. And then we're going to start applying that dyno beating technique that was shown with more upgrades, which is simply sliding the final drive back. First, we'll put it to 1 gear down, which gives us a 10.252. However, in test run, you'll see that it still accomplishes basically the 10.0 or better run. Now, it probably won't hit 9.8 because you've changed the gearing, but it doesn't mean it can't do well. It can still do pretty well. If I shift better, it'll probably do better. But anyway, it's not terrible here. Let's see what it runs. One gear off is one gear off. 10.0 on a 10.2 dyno, you're now beating dyno by almost 2.5 seconds. Now, if you set it to the next gear down, here you're sacrificing a bunch more evo, but now you're looking at a 10.6. But again, even at stage 5 only, just by using the slider method, you can still beat that 10.6 by a lot. So we're going to do that run again. This time I'm going to launch a little bit earlier. And we drive it through the same way. And once again, I saw at the very end there, car ran 10.0. So you got a 10.0 car, whether you have it in topping out in fifth or topping out in sixth. It's just a matter of choice as to how much you want to top it out by. But generally speaking, it'll still run that 10.0. So that is one of the flexibilities of this car that I love is the fact that you can kind of tweak the tune, right? And it doesn't require that much upgrades, such as stage sixes and stuff, to accomplish it, unlike some other cars, which if you're not, uh, upgraded with certain stage sixes, you just can't get this level of dyno adjustment. So here I'm going to take this car right back into live and see what I can do with it. Now, I could race a similar car, but then I have to wonder if perhaps he's also down-tuned like I am a little bit. But usually, if you can challenge, and I'm not getting this one's going to disconnect. If you can challenge and if you can get a race in, um, you should be able to get a feel for where the lobby's at pretty quickly. So let me see, I'll try out this guy if I can connect. Some lobbies I just can't, well, the back button's there. Some lobbies I just can't connect. Some I can. Now he's not accepting yet. If he doesn't by say 12, I'm just going to bail because he's not going to accept. All right, let's move on to the next guy. Kind of hard to find somebody to race. Let's try triple X. Oh, accepted. That's good. Okay, so remember, my dyno is about a 10.3, but these cars very well could run faster than that. The Jaguar certainly can do it too. If it's tuned properly, it can run quite a bit under dyno, but let's see where we're at here with this car. All right, neck and neck. Starting to pull away. I'm going to stay in fifth, drop to fourth, and I think I might have lost that one. Whoops, a little too much. But it's not a big deal because I'm just kind of watching where I am in the lobby. So I lost by, hundreds or so. A little bit too much on the brakes there, but as you can see, certainly if I ran what I could run, I could certainly beat that opponent. I just choose not to do it because this is the first run coming into a lobby after I reset a car to a different tune. And if you run all out right away, you're going to push the computer to lobby you differently. And that's kind of risky. I don't want to do that. I can go back and challenge him again, and this time maybe not break as much, get my win for a change, but we'll see. The key of slowing down is that you don't want to slow down too much, but you want to keep it pretty close. Because if you're running already under dyno a little bit, your opponent's running a little more, and then you're trying to beat them, you might be running under dyno too much. Do it more than 3-4 times, and you'll be reset to a completely faster lobby based on your now much faster average speed and time. So definitely keep that in mind. You don't want to go too crazy, but well, he ran faster this time. So I'm pushing him to perform a little more. Now he ran his 10.096. So this guy can also run 10.0s. He could probably push it even further, but at this point, it's not a big deal. I'll race him one more time. Now, if I keep pushing him and he keeps running those 10.0s, he's going to go to a 10.0 lobby. The CX as well as the Audi R8 V10, depending on how much upgrades you have, can get bumped relatively quickly. So let's do one more. And this time I'll run all out and do a 10.0 and let's see who wins, right? It's going to be a close race, provided that's his top end. All right, so this time I'm going to shift into 6. He's backing off. So he's actually backing off. I'm going to slow down. So he's probably realizing if he keeps going as fast as I'm going and keep pushing it, he's going to get bumped. So he actually backed off a little bit on to a 10.03. I mean 10.3. The other possibility is he didn't back off and he's simply running slower because he messed up his launch somewhat, which is another possibility. So let's race again. This time I'm still going to go all out because he got 2 wins. I think this time it's fair if I take 2 wins. All right, let's see what happens. All right, so once again, this is a tighter beginning like the other time. Is he going to catch up? Yes, he's coming, and I beat him by a little bit. So little delay shift there. Now this is still going to be a very low run, 10.1, 10.1. Okay, so it's a little bit of a closer run, and I get my silver keys, and he challenges me yet again. This time I am going to just run a little bit slow because I'm going to leave this lobby. I'm not going to leave on a win with a really fast time. Rather, I'm going to leave on a loss with a relatively slow time so I can hopefully not get my car bumped up right away. So here I'm going to run it, but I'm going to run it much slower than normal. Here we go. So no nitrous. Nitrous in third, fourth, fifth, and I'm going to stay in fifth. This will be like a 10.5, and boom. All right, it's a nice loss, 10.5. He ran at 10.153. So he's somewhere between 10.0 and 10.3s, depending on how he launches. I'm not going to question it. It is a good way to drive that car. It is a good car since he's beating Dyno. But for my purposes, I want to leave the lobby on a slower run. So hopefully I can jump back into the same lobby when I jump back in. And you'll see that if you do a bunch of faster runs, you come back out and you jump in the lobby, you're not going to get the same lobby. You're going to get bumped forward to a faster lobby with completely different racers. Here I'm still seeing the same guys. That's a good sign. Back to the garage I go. All right, so that kind of finalizes my review and discussion of this Prestige Cup car for this season. I didn't really get into the Prestige Cup aspects as much because, quite frankly, Natural Motion's made them very easy recently. So I figure, given the current trend, if you have enough fusions and probably 2 strong stage 6s, you're more than capable of beating the Prestige Cup. For that matter, you may even be able to beat it on 1 stage 6. So we'll have to see. But really, the most interesting thing about this car isn't the fact that you can use it this season for Prestige Cup, but is the fact that it is one of the more flexible live racers and is a great Tempest choice. I'm going to conclude my discussion of this car at this point. I hope some of this information was helpful to you. Feel free to ask me questions in the comments. And if you like the video, please let me know by leaving a like. And if you like my videos, please subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications when I put up new videos. And as always, thank you for watching my videos, and I'll catch you next time.